Welcome to the March 12th edition of the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, brought to you by the National Urban League. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson, president of the Harlem, New York-based diversity recruitment firm East Coast Executives. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Jump into the chat. Tell us where you're from. We'd appreciate that. The Digital Career Success Series, DCSS, is a professional development series that helps members of our Urban League Young Professional chapters and other diverse job seekers develop new skill sets that will enhance their careers through digital platforms such as webinars, Facebook, and Instagram Live. The goal is to provide an opportunity for professional development right from one's computer. If you want more, visit us at the nuljobsnetwork.com. Okay, let's see who's with us today. A lot of cities represented out here. I see New York City, of course, Wilmington, wow, Washington, D.C. in the building, Atlanta, Philly, South Carolina, okay. This today is the Digital Career Success Series, Beyond the Clock, Transforming Time Management into Success, featuring Dr. Deborah Johnson-Blake. And this is brought to you by the National Urban League. All right, so I guess it's time for time management. The time management diva, Dr. DJ. You're here with us today. Hey, how's it going?
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Deborah Johnson-Blake, a.k.a. Dr. DJ, the time management diva in the house today.
You know, I love that energy. I loved it on the video. If you're on here, please follow us on Instagram, UL Jobs Network, and also tap in with us on LinkedIn as well. We're here for all of that energy. We got Dr. Deborah Johnson-Blake, the time management diva in the building. Please tell us a little more about yourself.
Absolutely. I specialize in helping individuals and organizations take control of their time, helping them increase productivity and create a better work-life balance. So as a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, and a professor, and the CEO of The Writing Pad, I like to focus on coaching and training people to kind of maximize their efficiency. You know, every week I share practical time management strategies on social media, helping professionals just like you reclaim your time.
It's such an important thing to reclaim time, especially in today's world. We've had people on here that spoke about different tools and resources and things of that nature to kind of reclaim your time. And I know you have a very practical approach to reclaiming time that's extremely effective. So let's just jump into it today.
Absolutely. Well, first, I'm excited to share 5 powerful strategies to help you transform your time management into success beyond the clock, right? And yes, you may even be able to get 2 hours back of your time. So how would you like that? But one thing I want to say before I begin is at the end of this session, you're going to have access to a QR code. And with that QR code, I want you to scan it, take a picture of it, go to the link, because you have an opportunity to download a free gift. What is that free gift? It's the A to Z of time management that you'll have this in digital format. But if you download today, sometime today, your name will be placed in a raffle to receive an autographed copy of my #1 Amazon.com bestseller, 52 Time Management Hacks. So thanks for being here today.
See, I see what you did right there. So you've set everybody up to prioritize and goal set already, right? Because they're going to need to do that to win on the back end of this. So we'll be speaking to them again at the end as you'll be giving out gifts and prizes, basically. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about prioritization and goal setting.
Absolutely. So if you've ever felt like time is slipping through your fingers, today's session is going to change that, right? Because we're not talking about managing time. We're talking about managing what matters most. And so today I'm going to share 5 quick wins. I like to call them quick wins. And some of the information you may be familiar with. The challenge that I find that most of my clients have is putting things into action, implementation, right? To be successful beyond the clock. So prioritization and goal setting, planning and scheduling, self-awareness and energy management, eliminating those time wasters, and sustaining success. But first, as Kenneth said, I'm going to dive into prioritization and goal setting. Here's the deal. You want to hear it? Lean in. Time management is a myth, y'all. You can't manage time because you only get 24 hours no matter how good you are. But what you can manage are your priorities, your tasks, and how long it takes you to get them done. But if you need a good definition of time management, this is it. It's spending time on important, achievable tasks and using time effectively and productively. So it's not about managing time, it's about managing the tasks and knowing how long it takes to complete it. And so yes.
as we speak about kind of managing time and task, it's how do I want to phrase this here? It's people speak about it, but to put it into play, to not procrastinate, to put it into practice seems to be so difficult.
And it is, absolutely. But one of the strategies that I like to use is the Eisenhower matrix when it comes to prioritizing. If you've heard of the Eisenhower matrix, put it in the chat, okay? Because this is essential for prioritizing and goal setting. So what I want you to do, if you have a sheet of paper in front of you, I just want you to kind of draw a square and then put it into 4 quadrants. Put a plus sign from one end to the other. And you got 4 quadrants, right? So the Eisenhower matrix is a game changer. It helps you figure out what's urgent and what's important. The goal is to spend time in the important zone and less in the urgent firefighting mode, like I like to say. So here's the challenge. I want you to stop saying, I don't have time. Instead, you can say, it's not a priority. And that tiny shift in your thinking changes everything. Suddenly, you're in control, or you should be in control. So let's talk a little bit about the Eisenhower matrix. And it's also called the important urgent framework. And it helps you categorize your tasks into those 4 quadrants I told you about. Important and urgent, meaning do it now. Important and not urgent, meaning schedule it. Not important and urgent is something that you can delegate, and not important and not urgent. I need you to just take it off the list. Do you really need it on the list?
So, take it off the list?
Eliminate it, honey.
I'm concerned that it's going to become important and urgent if I eliminate it. I'm concerned that it's going to find its way up to the other quadrant.
But remember, if you're prioritizing your task yourself and you put that in that quadrant, it really shouldn't be there. Oh, we can say somebody else can do it.
Okay.
Because there are so many tasks that are on our list that we really shouldn't be doing. And so that's why I want the audience to kind of visualize, draw the square, make it 4 quadrants, and really prioritize maybe your next 3 to 5 tasks that you have to do later this week or next week, right? The whole goal is to look at the list, assess it, put it in priority order from like number 1 to number 5, let's say, number 1 being your most urgent. And then you think about where they go in the quadrant. Is it something that's immediate? Because if it's urgent and important, like I said earlier, do it now. And an example of that could be critical and time-sensitive tasks, deadlines, emergencies, crisis management. Schedule it now, which is important and not urgent. Those are things like strategic planning, relationship building, personal and professional development, even networking. You can schedule those like you do, right? And then not important and urgent is delegated. And those are things like emails, meetings, maybe someone else could attend for you on your behalf if you really truly need to be there. And then, of course, that last one, not important and not urgent. And I said, I know. If it does not contribute significantly to your goals and priority, does it really need to be on the list? And that's those trivial activities, time wasters, distractions.
So Dr. DJ, as I'm building out these quadrants, how many items can I put in my quadrant, in each particular quadrant?
Well, for today, we could just focus on 3 to 5. But in general, you can make it larger than life, how you like to be. And then just put, maybe put 5 to 6 in each one, depending on what's your list. But for me, because I know we have a list of 25 tasks or so, I still like to focus on my top 3 to 5.
Sure.
That's part of my priority. Check them off the list because I think we all like to check, and then pull those other ones up as needed in priority order.
All right, you know you have me locked in here. I'm learning so much already, right? So am I setting this up as my week or is this for my day?
And you can do it either way. Initially, I indicated what are those top 3 to 5 tasks that you have to do later this week or next week. I usually like to suggest to my clients to plan at least a week in advance. I know we have other tasks and events on our calendar beyond a week, but if you're planning this week for next week, that's awesome. And then you can prioritize where it needs to be, which quadrant, and does it really need to be on your list? And can you delegate it out to someone else?
Okay. You see the crack work of our team here, putting that quadrant up in the middle of the screen. I love it. Hey, listen, this is what we do with the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. Please know that we will have a Q&A with Dr. DJ at the end, so drop your questions in, and we'll get to them as we can. All right, listen, so we talked about prioritization. We spoke about goal setting, but really this is about mastering productivity. Am I correct here?
Absolutely. It's all about productivity, being your most productive.
So how do we make sure that we're our most productive in the process?
Well, one thing I want to say just from the last item that I was talking about is, and I want you to hear me, SMART, SMART. First, I want you to write that down. And that means SMART goals, right? The SMART acronym. Not going to get into it too much because we're going to go back, but I want you to look at when you are developing and thinking about what you want to achieve, I want you to make sure that your goal is specific, it's measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So you have to know exactly what you want to do. You have to know how you're going to track your progress. You have to know, is it something I really can achieve? And then determine whether it aligns with your overall objectives and priorities. Last thing, you got to put a time on it. When does this need to be done? Because if you don't put the time on it, guess what? It sits there. Yeah. You haven't, you're not motivated enough. You haven't encouraged yourself enough because there's no time on it. So I wanted to say that first quickly before we move on.
You're the time management diva. You have to say that. Yeah, this is what we have you for today. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
All right. So look, we're mastering. We're out here looking to master productivity, and there has to be some thought that goes into just being thorough in that process. Can you talk to us about how we can master productivity, please?
Absolutely. One of the things about mastering productivity through planning and scheduling is time blocking, because time blocking allows for focus. So time blocking is a time management technique where you divide your day into smaller blocks dedicated to specific tasks or groups of similar tasks. So this method helps eliminate those distractions that we get. It minimizes decision fatigue and it encourages focus on one task at a time, thus improving focus. That's the whole goal. So for example, I'm a morning person, so I typically reserve mornings for my deep work and afternoons for meetings or administrative tasks. That's how I like to work, but people work what's best for them. And sometimes to find out what works best for you, you got to test it out. So how do you time block? Basically, you're going to identify those tasks. You're going to list all those tasks you need to complete for the week. And this is similar going back to the Eisenhower matrix that we talked about earlier. Okay. Then you're going to prioritize those tasks. So you're going to use the framework again, Eisenhower matrix, to prioritize those tasks by importance and urgency. Typically, I like to work with a list that has 3 to 5 items, even though we know we have 20, 25 items on our list, and then prioritize those. Once you identify the task, prioritize the task, now it's time to schedule those time blocks. And this is where you will assign specific time slots for each task or group or task using a calendar or planner. And you can even color code them, which I absolutely love. And then you're going to focus on the one task. So during each block, you're focusing solely on the assigned task without interruptions, okay?
So when we're setting these blocks up, what are we looking at? 45-minute windows, 2-hour windows, whole day? What are we talking about?
No, not the whole day. Of course, you can have many blocks is going to encompass a whole day, but you're looking at things like 15, 30 minutes. So for instance, if you say, okay, I want to check my emails at 9 o'clock to 9:15, right? So you can block that out each day. And then you want to block it out again, maybe right after lunch, and then before you shut down for the day. Now, I know emails come up all day long. You're hearing that ping, 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 ping. I don't like to hear the ping, so my notifications are off. Okay. But so 15, 30 minutes block. If you're working on a proposal, you're working on a grant, or you're working on some type of business application, you may need 60 minutes to 90 minutes. Then you block out that time and you can color code that too. But the whole objective is to review and adjust. Okay? Nothing set in stone. I want you to be able to be flexible and schedule as needed and then repeat.
All right. So if I'm time blocking, are you suggesting that I stay consistent in that time block? So say Monday of this week, let's just say it's the 7th. The 14th should look very similar from a time blocking perspective, or is this something that's modular? I'm changing it day to day.
You can change it day to day, but if you like to, if you're like some individuals, they are stringent in how they do their days, right? Emails is every day, all day long.
Yes.
But suppose you're doing something like employee reviews, you're doing that time, but you're not doing them all in one day. You might do them over a week or two, right? So it can be the same time, but no, it does not have to be the same time because our schedules fluctuate so much. We want to make sure that when we are time blocking, it's what's best for us and to be the most efficient.
I love that part about it. It's what's best for us. And that takes some self-awareness. What we're talking about, you spoke about goal setting, and then you spoke about prioritization and scheduling. And now it's just kind of being self-aware, knowing what's important, giving yourself the amount of time for you to do it, because that's going to be different for each and every one, right?
Absolutely.
And then also making sure you're doing tasks. I noticed that you had energy management here. So I want to speak about self-awareness and then take us straight through into energy management, because I think I know where you're going here, but I'm not completely sure. So let's talk about it.
Absolutely. So we all have different peaks of productivity. Earlier I said I'm most productive in the morning. Then we have, night owls, people who like to work night, and then those people who like to work in between. So we're all different. Our biological rhythms are different. Okay. So the whole objective is, when it comes to the self-awareness, is knowing where you are on the spectrum. And the spectrum would be a morning lock, if you want to call it that, an early riser, and you tend to be most productive prior to noon. You got the night owls. They find that peak productivity is later in the day or night. You also have a midday peak. They call that kind of the third bird, so to be. That's in between where you're most energized, right? And this is some research by Dr. Michael Briss, The Power of When, who suggests aligning tasks with your biological clock. And the whole objective is to be your most efficient at one of those times, but you have to be self-aware.
So I'm very aware that the evening is my time. I do a lot of work in the evening, but now that we're in situations where people are working remote, people may be in a hybrid situation. Like you can't be a late night person if you need to be in the office, right? So from an entrepreneurial standpoint, maybe, right? But if you're working a regular job, a traditional 9 to 5, as we call it, how are you? You just still need to kind of focus in on where you're at each part of the day. And I guess with coworkers and things of that nature, some of those things come into play as well.
Yes, absolutely. Because everybody doesn't work the way we work, right? We're all different. And so when you are working, the 9 to 5, so to speak, you almost have to stretch yourself if you are a night owl. And the whole thing is, I hope you can get some rest. But if you have to work between the 9 to 5 or the 8 to 5 or the 9 to 6, you have to structure yourself accordingly to make sure that you can get those tasks and deliverables done during those hours. And that shouldn't be a hard thing to do for the most part, because 9 to 5 is something that majority of people work.
Sure.
But flexibility will have to come into play there. And even if you're just taking that small window of 8 to 9 hours of work time, you really could do a self-assessment and see where you are in a 90-minute period. So even if you do for your tracking your energy level, maybe do it in a 90-minute interval for the day, so you can kind of say, okay, this is where I am. I'm most productive between 2 and 5 p.m., during these hours. This is what I need to be doing. My high tasks, more focused, things that you have to do so you can get it done.
What I'm seeing in this, as you speak about it, I'm kind of visualizing people really taking ownership over their workday. Is that what this is all about?
That's what it's all about. It's taking ownership over your workday and knowing that the workday could change at any moment, because we know crises come up sometimes that requires us to be flexible. And having said that, this is when you don't schedule too many back to back to back. You need some leeway in there, just like project management. You need some leeway time in there just in case the unexpected happens, and you still can maintain control over your day. Because what happens is everything else get pushed back if it's so tight. And that's why if someone else is managing your calendar, it's very important to have conversations that, hey, I don't want to stack them back to back unless you absolutely have to. And I understand that happens, but the whole goal is give yourself some flexibility and time so you can manage any crisis that come up.
Now, I know there are some tools and resources out here that individuals can use, project management tools even, that people can use. Are there any things that you've had success with or that you're aware of that maybe you can make as a suggestion to our audience?
Absolutely. Some of the tracking tools are, and these are apps. So time tracking tools, for instance, I'm going to talk about that because you can track your time, because time management isn't about managing time. It's about managing a task and knowing how long it takes to get it done. So some of these time tracking tools are Toggle, Toggl. You got Rescue Time. You got Clockify, Trello, Focus, Asana, Monday.com. And you may be using those already, but are you using those to your full capacity within your organization? These apps can be lifesavers. And I know you say, oh, another app, because, we are app focused, but you find what works best for you. And to do that, you need a little trial and error. And the whole objective is not let the app take control of you, but the other way around. So it's so important to create those boundaries. And some people just like to use pen and paper, right? To analyze what's actual and what's perceived when it comes to your productivity.
I love it. I love it. So listen, we're here on the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series with Dr. DJ, the time management diva, also known as Dr. Deborah Johnson-Blake. Look, excited to have you here. I want everybody to know that this, as well as all of our Urban League Jobs Network DCSS episodes, can be found on the Urban League YouTube channel. So you can go there to rewatch Dr. DJ. She's given so much information on how people can manage their time. You're going to want to rewatch this so you can see it there. All right. So we're talking about managing your time, but just like anything else, there are going to be pitfalls to this. So let's talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls, the time wasting pitfalls that we come across each and every day, it seems like.
Absolutely. We all waste time from time to time, right? And before I even get into what I actually want to say, I want to say one of those pitfalls is this tool right here, this cell phone that we absolutely love, right? We'll be checking messages, checking social. And, sometimes we can go down that rabbit hole. We think we can anyway while we're doing other things. But one thing I do want to bring to the forefront is the myth of multitasking. multitasking. Okay. Multitasking reduces efficiency and increases errors. Did you hear me?
I hear you.
Multitasking reduces efficiency and increases errors. So I always want to encourage my clients to do single tasking because you can focus better by just focusing on one thing at a time. Sometimes we believe we can do two things at once, but really we can't. We just don't have that superpower, no matter how hard we try. Now, on some maybe minute things, we can, if you're doing something personal, like talking on the phone, washing dishes, right? But most things that are related to business, you can't do. And I have tried it and tested it. And what happens is if I'm responding to an email, right? And let's say I'm on a telephone call, I'm responding to an email and I'm typing a response that's related to the telephone call that has nothing to do with the email.
Yes.
So I said, hey, Dr. DJ, one thing at a time.
I once believed that I was a good multitasker. And then I realized that was a farce. I am not, and I'm proud to not be. I just kind of try to lock in and just check things off of my list of to-do things. I just like to check them off. So the only way I can find myself being able to do that is to stay focused on a single task. So I can appreciate that. What other time-wasting pitfalls are we encountering on a day-to-day basis? You got the phone, right? We got multitasking. Is there anything else? I know when we're in an office, we might have coworkers and colleagues that kind of interrupt our day.
Oh my goodness. I remember when I was actually going to a campus and had my office, and I was fortunate to have a door, but you still get the little knocks when you're trying to concentrate on things. And I would have a sign on my door, do not disturb unless the building is on fire. And I would know if the building's on fire, okay, because I was on the fire committee. But before I say something else, I do want to go back. I know.
You know if the building's on fire without being on the fire committee. I think you would know.
I would absolutely know it.
Since we're here talking about time-wasting pitfalls, let's just bring this current. A lot of companies are stating that these work-from-home situations or hybrid working environments, they're losing productivity. Is that because there are time-wasting pitfalls that exist in your home? Because I think there's some in the offices as well. Give us your tips on how people can work remote or work from home and avoid some of these time-wasting pitfalls.
Well, and I work from home as well. So one of the things, and everybody may not have this option, but if you have a door, I'm keeping it closed. Right now, I have a sign on my door that says, meeting in progress, things of that nature, where you are kind of, getting your family and roommates and loved ones used to you being out of sight. That's the first thing, because a lot of times, who's ever in the house with us is a distraction, right?
Yes.
Right. And so, or you might get up and say, oh, I want to wash clothes real quick. Not saying you can't put a load in the wash, but there's the appropriate time for that if you're focusing on what needs to be done. So I close my door. If you don't have a door, that's fine. Maybe put up a little sign near your workspace, work area, do not disturb. Let the family know in advance. I turn off a lot of notifications and phones and things of that nature when, I am doing my focus work as well. Because what I found is when I concentrate on one task at a time and kind of put the noise behind me, I am maximizing my efficiency.
Okay. So, all right. So that's the work from home scenario. How about in office? We have so many open workplaces. We just had someone say that they're required to attend a lot of meetings and they feel like it's taking away from their productivity. What are some time-wasting pitfalls that we find in office that we can kind of overcome by avoiding them?
Well, and I'm going to speak to the meeting specifically because I'm one that I think all meetings are not necessary. Some information can be shared, via your inner office chat or email or something like that. But I know sometimes people don't have the option of saying no to some meetings. But then as professionals, one thing I like to say, even if when you have a supervisor, is what's the priority? Is this meeting a priority, or can I provide the content that's requested of me via email because I'm working on this other project that's due, in 2 days or something like that. When you're in the office per se, and I know the open environment is something that many people are using for workspace. But one thing that I did, because if you have like one chair or two chairs maybe near your workstation, my chairs were filled with files. And the reason being is because if, I like to chit chat too, okay? But when you come up and somebody's trying to talk about something that maybe not necessarily be work related, or it might start off work related, but then goes into personal. That's what we do. That's all a part about socializing. But sometimes I don't have the time. But if something's in my chair, they can't sit down and get comfortable because that might be an extra 5, 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
And so that's a distraction. I want to say something else about multitasking real quick.
Sure.
And based on research, not my personal research, but multitasking can lower your IQ, can reduce your performance and efficiency, of course, as I said, and even have some medical impact, and I'm not a medical doctor, I'm an academic, but that's huge when you think about we multitask every day. But as if it wasn't bad enough, multitasking is counterproductive because what happens is going to take you longer to do those tasks.
Okay.
And the reason is called switching costs. So switching costs is generally referred to, and you probably heard this, when consumers switch between brands, suppliers, or products, right? For whatever reason. And so in this case, it's all about referring to switching between tasks repeatedly back and forth. And so according to the American Psychological Association, although switch costs may be relatively small, sometimes just a few tenths of a second per switch, they can add up to large amounts when people are switching repeatedly back and forth,
Sure.
Which is why, some people think multitasking may seem efficient on the surface, but it's really not. You're more prone to make errors and things of that. So avoid multitasking.
Something else I noticed when I fall into my multitasking habits, I feel like my days are longer. I feel like they're less fruitful in the sense that I didn't get as much done. I feel like I'm all over the place, and that's never a good way to be, especially when you're looking at building momentum, right? I'm always trying to build momentum and check things off, and oftentimes that doesn't work when I'm in that multitasking kind of hamster wheel. So let's get into building momentum and sustaining long-term success. I think that's the next slide, and it's really important.
Absolutely. Building momentum is important for efficiency and, of course, sustaining your long-term success. One of the things that I found is something called the progress principle by Harvard Business Review study that was done by some academics. And the research shows that even minor progress in meaningful work fuels motivation and long-term performance, right? And the whole objective is to get that momentum going, is to celebrate small wins. And so when employees and leaders who celebrate those small achievements and experiences, you have a higher engagement and productivity. And so that's all about building that momentum, getting the team, excited for what's to come, those goals, and hitting those benchmarks along the way.
Yeah. I came into this conversation thinking, I believe I have some time management challenges. I'm not great at it, right? But I'm getting all these tips from you. And then we get to this part of the conversation and you talk about, kind of acknowledging the small wins. And I think I do a really good job of that. I have an executive search firm, right? So here are these Coast executives, like, all right, so we find a candidate. That's a win. We present that candidate. That's a win. The candidate gets an interview. That's a win, right? So we're always trying to check off the wins. Right. Ultimately, we want the person to get hired. But I think we celebrate Well, we celebrate hires really well here, but we like to celebrate the wins to the process. So I can appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one other thing I would like to say when it comes to momentum and sustainability, and this is going to seem small and minute, there's something called the 5-minute rule. There's something called the 2-minute rule. If tasks take you 5 minutes or less, or even if we say 2 minutes or less, you do it immediately to prevent procrastination buildup. And there's nothing wrong with being a procrastinator. Yes, I said it. The good thing or the challenge is, or the self-awareness is that you know you're a procrastinator and you build in extra time to make sure that you can present those deliverables in a timely manner, right?
I wasn't sure where you were going with that one, but okay, I get it.
I know. Because you know what? We all are different. So it doesn't matter if we're firefighters where we feel like we got to put every crisis come, we got to put it out. And it might not be something that you have to do. If you're a procrastinator, oh, well, who said it's bad? You just have to be flexible and give yourself more time to get it done. I still want you to get it done on time now.
Hey, you were speaking about being on the fire committee, and when you said firefighters, I'm like, no, I don't want them to procrastinate. I need them to get here like immediately, right? But now I get it. Putting out the fires at your desk, right? Putting out things that and sometimes what's extremely important to you may not be as important in the big scheme of things. And you may have a little more time than you believe to kind of address that and take care of that. And I think that's really important for people to understand as they want sustainable long-term success.
Absolutely. And to go with that sustainability is also self-reflection. It's important to have regular self-reflection for sustainable growth, period, point blank. Because if we don't self-reflect, how are we going to know if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing to meet that end goal? So if we're working off of an organization strategic plan, which is one of the things I used to do when I was working on a campus, the strategic plan was my guide for my department to make sure that we were hitting the benchmarks or seeing where there were opportunities. And so that self-reflection as a leader, that self-reflection as a team was very important to build the momentum and for sustainability. And sometimes we don't look at it from that perspective, and we can go real deep. But yeah, time management is not just time management. And it takes a lot to be your most efficient, your most best self. And it doesn't happen overnight. And that's okay, so long you're making those small steps, those small wins towards that bigger goal.
As we continue to move on, before we jump into Q&A, I wanted to kind of go through this, right? So we talked about prioritization and goal setting. We talked about mastering productivity, planning, scheduling. Man, we've covered a lot. We talked about self-awareness and energy, and then time-wasting pitfalls, right? And then long-term success and kind of maintaining productivity. I want to just go back to the beginning. Is there anything that you do or you suggest people do prior to their day actually getting started? How do they get in the mindset for a very productive day with their time, with their own time?
Absolutely. Well, in my opinion, that starts the day before. Okay. Before you close out your work day, no matter what time that is, you're reflecting 10, 15 minutes to see what you need to do for the next day. Okay. Yes. And I'm going to say by day, we know what the week looks like. We know what the month looks like. We know what the quarter looks like. But again, anything can happen in between. So if you're taking 10 to 15 minutes to say, how do you want to structure your day for tomorrow? Okay.
Love it.
That way, that's already there. When you start your day, you have foundational framework to work from, even with the distractions, even with the crisis and things of that nature that come up. And we get frustrated a lot of times when things don't go our way. But it's okay, because that's what happens. We just have to be ready to pivot and change and be flexible to make sure that we can give the organization our best selves and make sure that we are adhering to the mission, to the vision of the leadership, and the goals of your department. So I encourage your audience to reflect and think about when was the last. This is what I'm going to say. When was the last time you did something just for you? So you're planning your day out and all. You've had some stress going on, we know, and you've gotten through that. But you also need to think about yourself. That self-care. I know that's a whole nother conversation, but that's in part of it too. And I just want people to plan.
I can appreciate you sharing that, and I can appreciate you speaking to our audience directly because they'd like to speak to you. And now we will move on to the Q&A segment of the program. So you're here with Dr. Deborah Johnson-Blake, the time management diva. If you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A. I'll try to help out where I can, but we got the expert here with us. So Deborah, here's our next question. In the meantime, I'll jump into another. Oh, there we go. Okay. So these are the quadrants, Adrian. So you're going to have your urgent things right up top. And those are the things that you want to do first, right? So she has a green on that. I guess that's your go. That's the go mode right there. And then right under that, you have things that aren't that important. So you probably want to delegate those tasks. Give them to someone else. Allow maybe an AI tool to do some of that work for you. If it's posting, maybe it's posting on social and creating that content. You may be able to use GPT or something else, or Claude or whatever it is that you're using to kind of create some of that copy. Of course, you're going to want to be really clear because it's your brand that we're talking about, and you'll want to proof that and add your own touch to it, but definitely a tool that you can use for the things that you've chosen to delegate. Then if we work our way back up to the scheduling component of it in the quadrant, you want to schedule out your tasks. This is just going to keep you on track as you work through your time management journey and trying to get better at the things you do. I think that probably goes back to what we were talking about with multitasking. If you're not scheduling things through, you're going to jump back and forth between different items, and that's probably never good for anyone. You're probably not going to get much done, and as you piecemeal the work that you're doing. And then also she has that there are things that you just want to avoid. You don't like doing them. They're low value tasks, but oftentimes I've noticed that we look at those things and we do them because we don't want to do the urgent task, right? We don't want to do the big things, so we get kind of lost in the small tasks that maybe we don't need to do. So that's one of the things that we were talking about as well. All right, I'm looking back through some of these items, and let's see. I feel like I am in so many meetings for work every day. I don't get to actually do my job. Delegation activities until after about 8 hours of workday. Any tips for that? All right. So you're in a lot of meetings. Are these meetings that you're scheduling, or are these meetings that you're scheduled to be in? And do you have the ability to decline attending the meeting? I think, with all these AI note takers and things of that nature, you may be able to not attend meetings and maybe have your note taker in the meeting and then kind of look at that later on. If that's interfering in your job, that's a big concern, or your ability to do your actual job, right? If that's interfering in that, that's a huge concern. And then especially if it's going into your personal time, if after your 8-hour workday is over, which I'm glad you get to do those 8 hours. Most people don't. But after that's over, that's pretty much your time. So yeah, you're going to have to find a way maybe to use some of these techniques that Dr. DJ was speaking about to manage your time better, or even just advocate for yourself and maybe get yourself out of some of those meetings. Maybe you can delegate that task to someone else on your team or something of that nature. People were speaking about, how they're using different AI tools and things of that nature to kind of manage their schedules. Also, we have somebody that really, oh, wow, this is great. We have a lot of the Urban League young professionals on here, and they're asking their peers to reach out. They love to connect and share resources, so that's a great thing. All right, I have a question for you. How can I optimize my daily schedule to balance leadership responsibilities and professional development?
Interesting. Well, it's all about planning and prioritizing still. I know we've already talked about that, but depending on what's the priority for you. So, as a leader, if you are a leader of a department or a group, this is when delegation can come in handy when you need to do something that's professional development that's related, to your leadership and building that up. So delegation is important as well. If I'm answering the question correctly and understood it, you're saying how can you balance your leadership and professional development?
Yes, it seems like people are trying to listen. I have a team. I'm a leader, but also I need some time to continue to develop my skills. I'm responsible for other people developing theirs, but I need to find ways to continue to grow as well.
Absolutely, and to me that's a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly process. And sometimes professional development comes in various ways, not necessarily attending a long conference or something like that, but it could be quick wins, whether it's maybe online training and certifications that you can work towards, maybe the next quarter or something like that. You still have to focus on yourself. So you're pouring into others as a leader. Sometimes I'm sure you probably have a mentor somewhere who's pouring into you, but at the same time, you can get your professional development in other ways, sometimes outside of work, because remember, you're investing in yourself if your time is that tight at work.
So they'd like to know what are the most effective time blocking techniques for managing high priority tasks without constant interruptions?
Yeah, that's a good one. And again, I'm still saying turn off those notifications if you can. Okay, even momentarily, it's very important for you to stay focused. If you have someone that manages your calendar or you manage your calendar and somebody has access to it, make sure you block out that maybe 1 hour for focus time. If they see that's on your calendar, that's your 1 hour do not disturb focus time, but you also are communicating and having a conversation with them even prior to planning that for yourself.
Wow, amazing. It's the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. We are on with Dr. Deborah Johnson-Blake, Dr. DJ, aka the Time Management Diva. Listen, this has been an amazing conversation. I sincerely appreciate you. And I'd like to know if you have any closing remarks that you'd like to share with our audience.
I absolutely do. I encourage the audience to pick at least one strategy from today's session, and put it into action. Just one. Start small, but start today. And I also want you to recognize that you don't control time, but you do control how you use it. Small changes lead to big results. And guess what? You've got this. You have got this. Yes, I'm so excited to be here.
They got this and we got you. It's Dr. Deborah Johnson-Blake live on the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. Listen, I want to thank you for joining us today. You are so amazing. This was Beyond the Clock, Transforming Time Management. Dr. DJ, the Time Management Diva, Dr. Deborah Johnson-Blake. Please stay connected with Dr. Blake.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing.
We think you're amazing as well. Thank you so very much for being here today. We really appreciate it. To our audience, if you want to stay connected to the work of Deborah Johnson-Blake, please do not hesitate to follow her here. And also, there's a QR code here for those of you that would like to stay even further connected with Dr. Blake. I believe she has a special offer that sits behind that QR code. So please take advantage of that as well. Also, if you want to stay connected to the work that we do here at East Coast Executives, my name is Kenneth L. Johnson. You can catch us at eastcoastexecutives.com, or I'm heavy on LinkedIn. Please do not hesitate to connect with me there, and on Instagram as well. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. You can also circle back because we are going to have an amazing conversation on March 26th, AI Unleashed. We got representatives from Microsoft. We got representatives from Google coming through to talk to you about how you can transform the future of work and embrace technology through AI. My name is Kenneth L. Johnson. On behalf of the National Urban League, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. Of course, I'd like to thank Dr. Deborah Johnson-Blake, Dr. DJ, the Time Management Diva. Grab that book, by the way. And also, I'd like to thank the team at the National Urban League, Wanda Jackson for the support, Corey O'Donnell for keeping us focused and moving us along on this program, and the whole team there that makes this thing special. Once again, we'll see you next week. Oh, I'm sorry, we'll see you in 2 weeks, March 26th, AI Unleashed. Hope to see you. Kenneth L. Johnson, thank you so very much to Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series.